Everybody. I'm Gail Clutton, and we are about to start our case study and data analysis for as a procedure for examining data. I have with me
Destiny Jordan, and I'm the leader.
Jones, I'm the recorder.
Jennifer Murphy, and I built the PowerPoint. Here it goes.
So what we had was we were given a case study that involved a brand new to the ninth grade teacher that had given some assessments in her class. And we are the third grade team and interventionists. And so we're going to look at the data that came from this assessment and determine what we think the next steps are, how well this assessment measured what we were looking at, and what the end result is.
So we started with what parts of this data catch your attention? And we
So there
had,
were lots of things.
Yeah. There were. Go for it. What'd you notice, Miss Jordan? What'd you notice?
So there
Go
were
ahead.
lots of red.
There were more red than green, more non-mastery of skills than there were. And the combined scores, that's where we noticed all that red of non-mastery. There was only one green question, and that popped out.
And also on question 7, it seemed that everyone got it correct.
Yeah.
What was so we had some places where short answers and open-ended questions. Kim, did you notice anything about the open-ended questions?
Yeah, the kids seem to be struggling with those. They did much better with the multiple choice.
Mm-hmm. Which is to begin. I mean, I understand I'm better at multiple choice than I am open-ended.
Absolutely.
And we did notice that on the actual test that there was a time limit. They had 30 minutes. So
that's true.
But
some kids probably felt a little more rushed just to get finished and not really focus on the actual content of the test and their knowledge.
And because of that, it would be easier to recognize those correct answers in the multiple choice and make a pretty good guess.
That's what I was going to mention too, that we don't know how accurate those answers truly are either.
Yeah.
The open-ended ones.
Thought goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because on our data, we were just given what the scores were for those short answer questions and not any information about the answers that the kids gave. So those short answer questions, are those also not pretty subjective in terms of scoring for a new teacher to score?
Oh, yeah. And it's hard as a new teacher to know exactly what you're looking for. So when we looked at her data, we wanted to know, what did we get from it?
One of the things I noticed was the impact that it had on the students. There was clearly way too many questions. The students easily were distracted, I'm sure, when they just looked down and noticed all the questions that were on it, which caused a lot of frustration, as well as there was lots of parts of the test.
Oh, yeah.
So I know as ninth grade students, you want to look through from the top to the bottom of the test and kind of see how long it's going to take you. And they clearly saw there was way too many tests on there, or way too many questions for the test. So I know some of them probably, if it were me, I would probably start rushing, trying to figure out all the ones I actually knew, and then, kind of cramming the ones last that I wasn't for sure on.
Right. Do all those multiple choice because they're easy.
Right.
And come back and not have as much time to spend on the open-ended questions.
Yeah. And looking at where her data runs, you can see that she questioned all her standards, that all the things that she said she was going to teach, they're all there on the chart in the middle of the page, and you can see how well they did. And that would make me question, what sequence did she teach them in? Did she teach the functions and identity at 100%, where they all mastered 100? Was that the last thing she taught? Versus maybe literal equations could have been the first thing she taught. So it tells me that they mastered some, but not all, but it doesn't tell me where in the lessons she taught it, which could have an impact on them.
Yeah, recency of experience.
So, and there were, go ahead.
Thought that on the open-ended questions that it could be, there could be a reading issue there. There could be reading difficulties, maybe with comprehending what the question was actually asking.
Yeah, that's a possible explanation.
Yeah,
they were
that
long.
reading, yeah, definitely could provide some interferences either in the understanding the language, academic language versus home language, plus just if there were reading disabilities going on. So yeah, that's a good point.
And I think we discussed too, during our session, that the test was all given in one day, which is very overwhelming for any student at any grade level. So,
and it would be. And keeping all that in mind, there was some good news though from all that data.
woohoo!
There was good news. Despite all that, there was some good news.
The students got number 7 correct.
Wow!
Chemistry, I'm solving equations.
They solved the equations. I love it. They did.
And they did well on functions. They got 100% on identifying the functions. So again, all correct.
And it shows too that multiple choice was clearly the easiest skill that they were using throughout the test. So that just kind of backs up what we were all talking about. Multiple choice is the easier route to go when taking the test.
And there's clearly some carryover from other classes or from other lessons that she's done that they're retaining and applying, which is great news. Every teacher wants to know that they're remembering what I'm teaching. Love it. So
yeah, because on that pre-algebra section, they did better overall on the stuff that I would assume had been either the semester before or the year before, because this was an algebra class.
Oh yeah. And as we moved into step 4, we've talked a little bit about some of the problems, but what were some other problems of practice that could have been suggested by the data?
There were missed opportunities to reteach because there was no formative assessment data when we were looking back at this. So clearly that can easily be a problem of practice. And also the time frame of the teaching was a little off. So I feel like those were clearly some problems that could have caused this data to be a little off.
And I wondered too, we talked about this earlier, that we didn't have any idea whether there had been formative assessments along, but it appears that there had not been any formative assessments as she went along, because there's so much that was not showing a high level of mastery that would make us think that perhaps those formative assessments earlier in the unit hadn't taken place. Otherwise, she would have known that they weren't mastering all of those pieces that went together for this assessment.
Ms. Jones, what do you think about her classroom practices? What kind of data do you think that shows us about her practice of teaching with her research based?
Well, the other things we talked about when we were looking at the data was that some things that could possibly affect just the outcome would be the attendance of the kids. You know, if they're showing up, and there's just all kinds of crazy things that could happen and affect the outcome. Home life. I mean, there's
yeah, too many variables.
Too many variables that we don't know.
Right.
Especially with ninth grade too. I mean, they're very independent, so they don't really always tell you, like the little kids do, what's maybe going on at home and causing, stress related issues or, so I think you're right on that one. I think knowing the attendance and the other problems like home life could easily interfere with the data we're seeing.
And we don't know if she had a mentor teacher or a collaborative teacher who could have helped her. That would be a good first step for her because she's a new teacher. And then as we moved on to our conclusion and our action plan, we had top 3s that we came up with.
Yeah, clearly the teacher needed to provide more opportunities of just practicing. I think practice really plays into the whole assessment. If you practice all the time consistently, you're going to get a better outcome. So I think the teacher really needs to provide that to her students.
Which then leads right into formative assessments, right? Because if she's providing lots of opportunities and some good, we talked about that earlier, good formative assessments as she goes along. We also talked about methods of teaching that she needed to, with a mentor perhaps, remember how to teach. The I do, we do, you do kind of explicit instruction that third grade teachers probably do much more consistently than maybe some of the teachers of older students.
And
Talked about the fact that maybe the students had not had enough practice with learning how to actually reason quantitatively, abstractively. You know, we don't know the background on that either.
exactly. So we kind of pulled together an action plan or next steps for our 9th grade teacher, and we came up with that PD, that formative assessment. And then planning with the end in mind, making sure our objectives were aligned, and getting that good collaborating teacher in there. We know that as we talk and we collaborate, we come up with ideas and remind ourselves of, you know, oh, wait, I skipped a step in the I do, we do. I went straight from I do to you do. So
Right.
I think having that plan in place for this new teacher would be a good idea.
I think that sounds perfect.
And I think we talked also about reteaching and co-teaching, those being huge. Of course, you need to always reteach what you're being taught, and also making sure that you're meeting the standards.
Absolutely. And that your standards and activities are aligned together.
Yep.
Yeah.
Some of
So I think,
I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead.
Some of the research-based instructional strategies would be to provide the students with multiple opportunities to be able to reason and just practice with algebraic equations and on a regular basis. Teach them how to solve problems. Some kids don't know how to solve problems.
Like the pancake question.
Algebraic equations, but just break it down for them.
Yeah. Because, you know, we had talked about the pancake question of, we don't know I know how to figure it out. So yeah, it's a good plan.
Yep.
All right.
So I think this concludes our presentation for the data. We hope you enjoy.